Hello and welcome back to my channel, The Future Empress. My name is Anna and today I'm gonna do an Icelandic book haul. And I am joined by a little misbehaving puppy. She's supposed to be cute, but look at this. So I recently was on Iceland visiting my family and I took the opportunity to buy a couple of Icelandic books since I'm trying to better my reading abilities, and I was never in school learning Icelandic, so I taught myself to read and write. And I don't know why, but I've always been hesitant to pick up Icelandic books in fear of them being too heavy or too hard for me to read. However, when I was visiting Iceland, I borrowed a book from my grandma and actually was able to finish it, which I'm so proud of. But that led to me buying a lot of Icelandic books to take with me back home. And yeah, so I'm gonna haul them now. I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 that are originally written by Icelandic authors, and then I have a couple of translated works and stuff like that. So let's just get into the book haul. So I'm gonna be hauling them timeline wise, so I also can give you a little stories behind me buying them. Some of them have interesting stories, others are just literally me buying the books. The first book I want to talk about is Burial Rites by Hannah Kent. This is one of the only books on here that's actually not Icelandic. However, it's set in Iceland and therefore I wanted to include it on this book haul. So my friend gifted this to me for Christmas. So this is a book set in northern Iceland in 1829, and on the back it says, "A woman condemned to death for murdering her lover, a family forced to take her in, a priest tasked with absolving her. But all is not as it seems, and time is running out. Winter is coming, and with it the execution date. Only she can know the truth. This is Agnes's story." So this just intrigued me because it's set in Iceland, and I have seen this around, not booktube, but around the internet when I was searching for Icelandic books, that this is really highly recommended, and I think it even won an award. But yeah, so this is the first book. This is not in Icelandic, not by an Icelandic author, but it's set in Iceland, and that's why I wanted to include it on this list. When I originally decided that I wanted to buy a couple of Icelandic books to take with me, I went on Google and searched for best Icelandic books and authors, and then I found a list of lots of literature, because Iceland is known for being the country that has the highest percentage of authors compared to their population. Most of us have either written something, poetry, literature, or anything. So there's lots of books to pick from. However, I wanted to read the classics and the most hyped, I guess, the most hyped books, because I know there's a lot of crime stories, because in Scandinavia we are very known for our crime stories. However, it's not that kind of story that I'm into, so I wanted to be able to find books that I want to read and are interested in reading. So some of these are classics, some of these are newer releases. However, something made me interested in them. And these 4 books I bought all at the same time when I went to the bookstore looking for some titles that I've seen online. The first one is Sjálfstætt Fólk by Halldór Laxness. This is called Independent People in English, and it's a very well-known classic, and I honestly don't know what this is, to be honest. I just know that it is one of the most well-known Icelandic classics, and it's originally published in the 1930s, so it's very old. And this edition is actually with footnotes that explain the old words used, since it's very old Icelandic and a lot of the words we don't use today, so there's footnotes to explain what their meaning is, so you will understand the story. And especially for me, where my vocabulary isn't at the best, because the only Icelandic I ever learned was from my parents and talking with my family, so I never was in school learning proper Icelandic, and my vocabulary is very limited, so this is very good for me to be able to understand the story and actually read it and still still know what the hell is going on. The next book that I bought at the same time is Englar Alheimsins by Einar Már Guðmundsson. This is The Angels of the Universe in English, and it's about a man who has schizophrenia and him just delving and getting more deeper into his mental illness. I would describe it as getting more and more crazy, or just his mental illness consuming him, I guess. And this is also considered one of Icelandic's classics. It's written in 1993, so it's gonna be hard for me to read these classics, but that's why I have a couple of other books that I'm gonna read before it that will maybe help me to transition into these harder classic books. The next two books that I bought in the same bookstore trip is the first and second in the Harry Potter series. This is the translated Icelandic editions. The first is Harry Potter og Viskusteinninn and the second is Harry Potter og Leyniklefinn. And yeah, there's not much to say about Harry Potter. We all know that the author is trash, and I don't want to promote this, but I just want to mention that I got these books because Harry Potter is something that I know very well, and reading it in Icelandic means a lot to me since I originally saw the movies first in Icelandic. And I also think that it will be easier for me to read a story that I already know translated into Icelandic, and since it's middle grade, or at least the first couple of books are middle grade, they will be easier for me to understand and learn my language better, and that's why I'm just mentioning them here. But we don't stand the author on this channel. She is unfortunately a very, very bad human. The next couple of books I actually bought at the same bookstore, but later because they didn't have it in the store. I had to order them, but these are also like on the list that I found online. The first books is actually one that I found on YouTube, like on BookTube first, and that is Mánasteinn, Drenginn sem aldrei var til by Sean. I have no idea how to pronounce that name actually, but it's translated, it means Moonstone, the boy that never was. And I originally heard read by Zoe, or Zoe Reads. I don't remember her channel name, but I will put her up here. I recently heard her talk about this book in was it a 24-hour readathon or something like that? And this is one of the first Icelandic books that I actually find myself and are intrigued in reading, because I always thought that Icelandic literature would be boring and not for me, but I'm trying to embrace it, and this is one of the first books that I wanted to buy myself. I think this is about a boy that's queer and is not accepted. I'm not sure what the story is about, but since it's like Mánasteinn is his name and it translated it's Moonstone, and the boy who never was, I'm imagining that he's not accepted for who he is. But it's set during 1918 where Katla, the volcano, erupts. I think this is gonna be a hard-hitting one and one that will resonate, hopefully. The next book is actually very not abnormal, but not like the others in this book called It's Love Star by Andri Snær Magnússon. So Love Star, obviously, that is English, and this is a sci-fi, I think. I'm not sure what this is actually. Like, I only saw that it was sci-fi and I was instantly hooked. I love sci-fi, and then when I found out that there's an Icelandic sci-fi out there, I was of course gonna buy it. Of course there's probably more sci-fi books out there, but they're maybe not as read or known. I just love the cover as well. I love going into books where I have no clue what's gonna happen or anything about the plot. That is my way to go into a book without even reading the backside of the book. That's why I'm not reading it and explaining it to you guys. The last book that I picked up in this bookstore was Himnaríki og Helviti. This is by Jón Kalman Stefánsson. Himnaríki og Helviti is Heaven and Hell in English, and this is about a boy who goes out fishing with another one, and something happens that makes him an outcast in society, and it's about him trying to survive in this community without any help or anything. I think. I was staying with my grandparents on my mother's side, so when I went to visit my grandmother on my father's side, she gave me some money to spend on something that I would like, and of course I spent it on books. So I have here 2 books that I bought for the money that she gifted me so kindly. This is what I mean with I wanted to pick some easier literature up for me to read to begin with, and what better way to pick up easier Icelandic books than to pick up middle grade / young adult. I think these 2 are like the older middle grade or younger young adult genre. And the first one we have here is Vampýrur, Vesen og annað tilfallandi by Ruth Guðnadóttir. This translated into English is Vampires, Creatures and Other Incidentals, and it just sounds like a quirky and actually a comical take on a like urban fantasy book. Like, just reading the back made me think that the author is just making fun of different kind of tropes, which just like makes me think that this is gonna be a funny middle grade. I'm excited to read this, and just the cover is so fun in itself, and on the back there's like a banana peel, and yeah, and the author is also bald, so represent. The next book I picked up is Dóttir Hafsins by Kristín Björk Sigurvinsdóttir. This is translated into The Daughter of the Sea, and this is book 1 in a series, I think. You can see here that it was actually nominated for like the Icelandic Book Awards, so I thought this would be a perfect middle grade. I think it's still really young adult, like 14-year-old, so I categorize that as just young adult, you know, or just middle grade. It depends. I don't know what is inside this book, and it's very hard because on Goodreads you won't be able to see them because these are both 2020 releases, so there's not a lot of information for like English speakers, and the Icelandic community don't use Goodreads as much, so therefore the information on there is not as updated. I have no idea what this is actually about. I just know that it's The Daughter of the Sea, and I love the sea, so I knew that I wanted to pick this one up. The next couple books actually have a fun story along with it. So my grandmother, she invited me to do this fly over Iceland tourist activity. It's where you go into this building where you are going through some cultural things about Iceland, and then you put in this attraction where you're in seats, and then there's like a virtual reality screen around you, and then the seats are like moving along with you, and you literally feel like you're flying over like the nature of Iceland. And it was such an amazing experience, and I highly recommend if you ever go to Iceland to try that, because it gives you like an overview of our nature and every beautiful corner there is, and in a very unique kind of way where you see it from above when we usually just see things from the ground. So it was very special to me to experience, and I'm very happy that my grandmother decided to give me this experience. But there in the gift shop I ended up picking up 13 dagar til jóla by Brian Pilkington. So this is a book originally written in English by a British author, I believe, but it's about our Santa Clauses, because on Iceland we have this folklore that there's 13 Santa Clauses and their mother Grýla, and she eats the children if you've been bad, and then there's like a black cat that also eats you if you don't get like clothing items for Christmas, and then there's like the 13 Santa Clauses who have like their own unique personality that gift you gifts 13 days up until Christmas. I wanted to like get a book or something explaining like that folklore for like my cousins that live in Denmark and have never experienced Iceland. However, I couldn't find one that was written in Icelandic. I only found this, which is just a picture book about some events up until Christmas. Honestly, I just think it's like a cute little story that I will be able to read for my cousins or just for myself during the Christmas time. It's a fairly short one since it's a picture book, but along with a little story, and I don't know, I think it will be special to read this for my cousins or for myself and just take like a homage to our roots and where we're from and our folklore. And you can see here on the end pages the actual names of the Santa Clauses and their personalities, explaining a bit about them. After that Flyover Iceland experience, right beside it is the Forlægins Bókabúð, which is the bookstore for a publisher. So of course I went in there to look through what they had for the selection, and I found the third book in Harry Potter, which is Harry Potter og Fangin frá Azkaban. These editions are newly coming out, so this just was published in 2021. Yeah, not much more to say about it. Still do not stand the author, but I just wanted to mention that I also got that book because it's part of my learning and educational experience as well. And then I have only 2 books left to talk about. These 2 books I actually bought in the airport when I was on my way back to Denmark. I love the bookstore that's in the airport of Keflavik. It's very cute and it has so much, and also just so much culture for the tourist, of course. But yeah, I was able to pick up a couple of other books that I have found on Goodreads actually. So the first book that I picked up at the airport is Ungfrú Ísland by Auður Ava Ólafsdóttir, and this is also one of like the nominees for the Icelandic Book Awards. This one is about a woman in 1963 who wants to be an author, but the author role is inherently male dominated and the women are supposed to be in the kitchen. And it's about her story, I think, trying to get her work published, and it sounds very important and I'm excited to read this one. The last book is Aðventa by Gunnar Gunnarsson. This is Advent in English. It's a very short little book. I'm actually not sure what's it about other than it's occurring during Christmas time and like the hardship of like a cold winter. Since Iceland has a lot of nature and like natural disasters like earthquakes, volcano eruptions, what is called when snow falls from the mountains, and like avalanches, and just a hard winter in general. It's just commonly known that our winters are very hard, and especially up north, and especially in the old days to get through. We even have like some special holidays concerning like end of winter celebrations because you survived the winter. So I think this is just about like Christmas time and the hardship of winter, and I don't know what the actual plot is about, but it's very short and I don't want to know much when it's this short. So yeah, these are all the books that I bought on Iceland, or ish, since the first one was not bought on Iceland. But I can't wait to read these, and it's weird, I am excited to actually start reading Icelandic while I was so intimidated by it just a month ago. I hope you enjoyed this video. It's a kind of different one and maybe not for everyone since all of these are technically in Icelandic. However, most of these are translated and a lot of these are actually well known outside of Iceland. I know a lot of international people actually read Icelandic literature and highly recommend it. So if you're interested in like the Icelandic culture and just learning a bit more about the nature and stuff, I highly recommend trying to pick some of these up. I can't say if they're good or not yet since I've not read any of them, but maybe. I hope you enjoyed this video and thank you so much for watching. See you next time. Bye!